Hello, everybody. I'm Mel. I am the Director of Athlete and Community Partnerships at Strava. And I was asked to introduce our very special guest today, mostly because Strava and Rapha have a very long-standing partnership, including everyone's favorite, the Festive 500, which, I don't know, has anyone here successfully completed the Festive 500? Damn, maybe this is my year. And maybe if we're lucky, we can talk Fran into bringing the patches back.
They're back. You just have to go to a clubhouse to get them.
Okay, all right. So Fran was named CEO of Rapha in 2024. So she's now had 18 months to start reshaping the most iconic, original cycling apparel brand in Rapha. Prior to this, Fran's career spanned more than 20 years of leadership experience in elite sports, cycling, luxury fashion, which is pretty awesome, and my favorite thing, I think, was your title at Team Sky, Head of Winning Behaviors.
Yep.
And at Team Sky, during Fran's tenure, Team Sky won 7 Tour de France's. And she applied the same methodology to helping Eliud Kipchoge break the 2-hour barrier. So you've had a pretty incredible career. She then went on to lead the turnaround of British luxury brand Belstaff before joining Rapha. And I cannot tell you personally how excited I was when I heard about Fran being appointed Rapha CEO, because when I first got into cycling, Rapha was the first brand that I truly, truly looked up to. And I remember the first group of women's ambassadors. Jolene Holland was one of those. And I just thought, this is a brand for me. And so, Fran, when I found out that you were appointed, I thought, damn, Rapha is a brand for all of us women out there again, too. So, without further ado, Fran Millar and the host of Hill Climbers, Sam Huntington.
Thanks, Mel.
Thanks, Mel.
That was thorough, yeah. That was like super professional.
What an intro.
Yeah. So we've got a short-lived tradition here with Hill Climbers, just a little audience engagement. On 3, I want everyone to say, "We love bikes." All right? 1, 2, 3.
We love bikes.
All right, that worked out really well. So, Fran, thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to give a quick shout out to Charlie Tames. Charlie put this thing together, basically. So, I mean, a massive opportunity for me personally. I've been a fan of Rapha for basically as long as I've been riding bikes, 13 or 14 years. And yeah, just to have Fran here with us in this community, kind of a global stage with our, tight little Austin community is so exciting. So thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So I think would love to just kind of like get right into it, just to get folks to know you a little bit better. Where are you from? And one of my favorite questions, what were you like as a kid? What were you into?
So I'm from Scotland. This accent is very, very English and is my mother's shame. My dad was in the military, so we moved around a lot. But both my parents are Scottish. I was born in Scotland, was in Scotland until I was 6. And what I was like as a kid, and my brother describes me in his book as being like the family Google before Google was a thing. Very confident, very talkative, very willing to go and speak to people and ask what they were doing and what they were up to. My mum would send me off on little missions when I was like 4 or 5, like, go and find out what they do, go and find out what's going on with them. So yeah, weird probably is the answer to that question.
And I guess, culturally, music, sports, like what did you lean into as a kid?
Do you know what? I don't really think I lent into anything that specifically.
Okay.
I was, I went to a musical theatre school for what's high school here. And I thought sort of through my early sort of pre-10, I thought I was going to be on the West End stage. And then I went to a musical theatre school and realised I had absolutely no talent. So quickly decided not to do that.
All right,
but was always always kind of into theatre and dramatics and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, that's actually a really good pivot. It was one of my questions. By the way, there's a fantastic interview with Fran from the Escape Collective. Wade Wallace, goes through a lot of your career, and we'll touch on some of that today. But one of the things you mentioned is I think you skipped university, right? Yeah. So you mentioned kind of being precocious.
Whoa, I did not use the word precocious, but sure.
As far as the decision to skip university, I see that as kind of entrepreneurial. Mm-hmm. What drove you?
So my mum was actually quite sick when I was young. So I looked after her from the age of about 11 to about 18. And like I say, I went to a musical theatre school, which is a very alternative school. When I finished at that school, I decided I'd go and do my A-levels, which I'm not quite sure what the equivalent is here, but sort of 16 to 18. And that was in a normal school. And I did that. And I thought, firstly, in England, when you go to university, you're pretty much going to kind of get your first taste of independence and sort of live on your own and get really drunk with your friends. And I just didn't feel the need to do that. I'd had a lot of independence. I'd had to have a lot of independence. Having moved from a very, very alternative school to a very structured school, I was like, I don't want to be in a structured educational environment anymore. I've learned what I need to learn. I want to go and do more applied learning and sort of go and get a job. And I had this like thing in my head where I wanted to, when my friends came out of university 3 years after, I wanted to have a better job and be earning more money than they were going to be able to have. Don't know what drove that.
That's competitive. That sounds competitive. Yeah.
So that's what I did. Just went after it hard.
Right.
Yeah.
And another little kind of context on Fran, your brother David, very decorated professional cyclist. How much, of kind of your upbringing, your background revolved around cycling? Was it, little, a lot, like?
We're not a cycling family, and I don't know what it's like in the US, but in the UK, certainly 25, 30 years ago, you were either from a cycling family or you didn't ride bikes. So David, my parents got divorced. My dad moved to Hong Kong when I was 11 and David was 12, 13. So I stayed with my mum and we'd switch in the air basically. So my mum would get stuck with this like 13, 14, 15-year-old boy with no one to hang out with. And so she joined him in a local cycling club because he liked riding a mountain bike when he was in Hong Kong. And that just led to him getting really, really good. He sort of broke the time trial course of High Wycombe Cycling Club. He got identified really young. He got spotted by Cyril Guimard, who'd like discovered Greg LeMond. He signed pro at 19. So yeah, it was kind of the only big bit that's for me is like really tied to my childhood was when David and I got brief moments of time together in the summer before I flew to Hong Kong or before he, came home. We'd always watch the tour together. Like that was our thing. We'd watch the tour.
Yeah.
So it was like Miguel Indurain, Bjarne Riis era. And I think I always just associated the tour with my brother. Like that was just, so it was more like, I really liked watching it because it meant I got to hang out with my big brother.
Right.
Not so much that I was loving the cycling. It was like, I get to hang out with David for 3 hours or 4 hours. So yeah.
So interesting. And so I guess, again, a little bit of context. I think you joined a talent agency, right?
I created a talent agency.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can you share with the group how cycling came into the purview?
So I left school, went to London to live with my boyfriend, and I wanted a job. I thought I wanted to go into something that was related to sport because of David, but didn't know how to do that. I went for an interview to be a personal assistant to a guy who ran a company called Quintus Events, and they were an events company that did kind of veterans tennis and all sorts of things. And he just bought the rights. This is in 1999. And he just bought the rights to the Wisden Almanac, which is like a cricket data book. And he bought the online rights. And this was so long ago that people were like, no one's ever going to use the internet for sports data. And as it turns out, he was a genius. But I was working for him then, so I was helping him kind of launch the Wisden Online proposition and everything else. And he knew David was a cyclist, so I talked to him about it. His business partner had been Bjorn Borg's manager back in the day. And I came into work in 2000. David had won the yellow jersey in his opening weekend of his debut Tour de France in 2000. And Anthony said to me, oh, was that your brother on the back page of the paper? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, just so you know, like you're a really, really shit PA, but I think you would be a really, really good manager. And I was like, okay, great. What does that mean? And he helped me basically set up an agency of my own to manage David. And that over the course of the next sort of 7 years, we built the biggest athlete and event management agency in cycling in the UK.
Yeah, it's a super entrepreneurial story and background. So cool.
I mean, I was shamelessly riding David's coattails, but yeah, entrepreneurial.
Yeah, I get that. That's one way to do it. One way to make it happen. Rapha, as Mel really eloquently shared, was a game changer. I mean, period, end of sentence. Like I mentioned, personally, when I started riding, it was really the only game in town as far as lifestyle brand, but also it went way beyond cycling. I mean, as far as an impact, my wife is here. She's a marketer, and I always when I think of Rapha, I think of her telling me that like she would always look at the latest, seasonal kind of lookbooks for guidance and trends in design. So I just wanted to ask a broad question. Like, you joined in 2024 as CEO. Can you just share a little bit of kind of historical context about the work the initiatives you've been up to since you joined? And then we can sort of look forward.
Yeah, sure.
Great.
So obviously I had known of Rapha. It's obviously a British brand, started in 2004 by Simon Mottram. I actually brought Rapha into Team Sky when I was working at Team Sky. So was very familiar with them from 13 to 16. But if I'm honest, particularly having spent 4 years out of the industry, I hadn't really paid that much attention. I knew they'd been acquired in 2017. I knew Simon had done very well and had backed away from the business. And I knew they'd had a bit of a turbulent time. So when I was approached, I kind of wanted to just get under the skin of what had been going on and what had happened. And so the principal thing that I've been doing, certainly in the first 6 months, was just trying to understand the landscape of both the industry, the Rapha within the industry, the people within Rapha, and the kind of culture that was there. Because it's to the sort of point of your introduction, it's such a talismanic brand. And it has got so much history in the sport, and it is a reference brand for a lot of other brands. And that can be like an incredible asset, but it can also be a millstone.
Yeah.
And I think it had become a millstone. So the principal thing I've been doing is, what's our future strategy? Where can and should Rapha be showing up now? What do we mean and what do we stand for? And how do we build Rapha for the next 20 years without, one of the things I was told when I took the job was by one of the guys who used to be the CEO of Sky, and he was talking to me about heritage brands generally. And he said, when you take on a heritage brand, you have to make sure that your history is a plinth you stand on, not a cage that keeps you in. And I think that really struck for me with Rapha, because I think we'd started to cage ourselves in with you can't do this because it's not Rapha, or you can't do that because it's not Rapha. And I was like, we're going to have to change, because the industry has changed so fundamentally.
Can you share some examples of how that translates?
In terms of how we change as a business, or as
and your plans, your strategy for how you're
So first thing was stepping away from something like EF. So thinking about how do we show up in the world? I think we've been doing that relationship for 7 years. Fantastic, game-changing, brilliant relationship. But I think we needed to think about, okay, what's next for Rapha? So that was one. Simplifying the product range. It had become we were trying to do all things to all people. We were doing footwear, we were doing mountain bike, we were doing lifestyle, there was so much product. So pulled us away from lifestyle, pulled us away from footwear, really focusing and doubling down on the stuff we were good at. Then thinking about things like the USA partnership. So where was somewhere that Rapha was one of the only brands that could show up and do something different and special and game changing. And I felt that the Olympic Games was somewhere that we could do that. So it's been there's been all sorts. And, internally and culturally, they were a brand that kind of had their heads were a bit bowed, they'd been taking some hits and they got themselves backed into a corner. And I was like, get your shoulders back, get your heads up. We're the best brand in the sport. We can fucking do this, but we can do this, but we've got to...
Passion.
Yeah, and I am, right? I'm super passionate about it. I believe so deeply in the role that Rapha can play in the sport and in the industry and in cycling. And I believe so deeply in the power and the transformative power of the sport. And I'm like, if we can get those two things right, our size and our scale and our backers and the people who own us, the size of our community globally and the size of our brand awareness, and the kind of opportunity that presents itself with cycling generally in terms of, society needs cycling, right? It's the answer to so many of society's ills, whether that's obesity or the mental health crisis or connection and community. And so if you marry those three things together, it's magic, right?
One of the questions left in sort of the Q&A questionnaire was, how do you go about sourcing talent to drive that mission? And when I think of Rapha, I think of, folks in a London office and they're brand people and they're being precious and just so about the brand. Have you had to, and I could be totally wrong about that, but have you had to change the DNA of the company as far as the folks you hire?
A little bit. I think what's been interesting is when I joined the business, they showed me a video that was called the Rapha Why. And it had been made in 2019. It was narrated by Simon Mottram, our founder. And there were a whole host of people from within the business who'd been interviewed to talk about it. And why did Rapha exist? And what did they all feel it stood for? And Simon introed it with, everyone at Rapha knows the mission we are on. And I was like, wow, I don't feel like everyone at Rapha, when I joined, knows the mission we're on anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's my job, to make sure that we are crystal clear about the mission we're on. And I talk a lot about like being on the bus and knowing what, like if you're here and you're in and you want to do this, then that's great, but this is going to be hard work. There's a lot to do. Like, you've got to go after it. So there's definitely been a shift of like making sure people are clear about what we're trying to achieve, making sure they're 100% bought into what we're trying to achieve, and also making sure they realize that doing brilliant things is hard. Like, it's really, really hard. And I think I want to create an environment where it's like high performance and it's excellence, and that we're driving towards something incredible and doing something, I think when you do a job where you have purpose and meaning, it's such a gift that I really want to engender that within the organization. And I think we're getting there. Like, you can feel the kind of the energy shift is happening, but it did take an energy shift.
I think that's really a great insight, because, it's almost a shift from like joining the most important, global sort of, and we talked about like legacy brand to really looking forward and switching gears, and people have to be down for that mission, the future, as opposed to looking at how much Rapha has accomplished in the past.
Yeah,
right?
And that's, that is the magic of the journey. Because I think one of the things I talk a lot to the business about, I talk to Bell staff about it, we talk to Team Sky about it. It's like, as human beings, we crave connection and we crave belonging. And the great teams create a sense of that, and then they go after something. And the mission that you're going on and the work that you're doing, like getting to the win, it's great. Like, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't swap any of those 7 Tour de France wins, but it's the getting to the win that's the fun bit. The process is the fun bit.
Right.
Making mistakes, getting it wrong, going again, and you build this kind of connective tissue within an organization of people. And then when you do get the win, it's like, it's phenomenal. It's like, okay, let's go again. Let's go again. And I think that's the bit with Rapha, where it's like I say, we have a purpose that very few businesses have. We have a mission that we all believe in. We are, we're not selling widgets. We're selling a dream to do something that we believe in, that's passionate. We're all passionate about.
Yeah.
That's a special thing,
I was in LA in like 2015, 2016. RCC was like a real, powerhouse. And with some of the recent club closures, like, I think a lot of people are curious what the strategy is for RCC moving forward, what the club looks like. And I think also how you are engaging communities like this one here in Austin without as much of a clubhouse presence.
Yeah, so I mean, lots in that question, but community and the RCC sit right at the heart of my strategy. In the first 6 months of being in the brand, I was like, what is it? Do I need it? Does it work? And then I spent pretty much 6 months traveling around the world, meeting all of our communities, all the different people who've like been touched by the brand in some way. And I realized it's the single biggest differentiator that Rapha has. Like, we've been doing it for 11 years. It is fundamental within the fabric of the organization. It's the thing when you go out and you meet people who have been a part of the RCC or have been touched by the Rapha brand and have ridden with us, it genuinely is transformative, and it's genuinely quite life-changing for people. And I meet people who are like, I met my wife with the RCC,
cool.
or it pulled me out of like a mental health crisis or whatever. And it's so special. So it's at the heart of it, but doing it the way we have done it to date, that won't be the thing that moves us forward. Like, physical bricks and mortar have a role to play, and the clubhouses that we have remaining are incredibly important. But as you live in Austin, right? You can see how you don't need bricks and mortar to build community.
Well, most folks would not know that we'll be listening and watching. Fran rode with more than 100 cyclists this morning, and that was promoted by RCC Austin. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't, you look at what the guys are doing with Breakfast Club, and you don't need, community is changing. And I think post-pandemic particularly, we're looking for connection and belonging in a way that we haven't ever seen, really. And I think people don't just have to have a clubhouse to turn up to and physically be there to pay homage to it.
Right.
I think what I want to try and do is find a way to support the satellite communities and the kind of organic communities that we've had slowly growing. And like, Charlie does an amazing job here in Austin. We've got an incredible club down in Manila, in the Philippines. We've got ones in Jakarta and Osaka and Japan. I'm like, I don't feel like I need to go and put a clubhouse there to make it a real thing, but I do need to get behind it, and I need the brand to get behind it. And part of the clubhouse closure decision was, where do we have real strong community presence,
right,
where we really feel we can back it, and where don't we? And if we don't have the community and we don't have the financial return either, you can't justify the space because it's just distracting us from doing what we do really well. So it was a heartbreaking decision because our teams are phenomenal.
Yeah.
We have incredible ride leaders, incredible community leads, incredible general managers, and who all the stories you hear from people when I closed the clubhouses, all the emails were like, these people have changed my life. And
right.
they brought me into the sport, or they showed me what the sport was. And like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to, what do we do now? And I'm like, well, that's our job to make sure that you can still do that thing.
Right.
You just don't need to have a clubhouse to do it. And I think that's what we're really working on now.
Cool. And just so everyone knows, can you share a little bit about, as an RCC member, like what are the perks? What's the offering?
Sure.
Yeah.
So basically the main thing that we learned was that the more that you can ride with us, the better. So we have a whole host of events over the course of a year, whether that's the FARs, which are long, hard rides that we do twice a year. If you're an RCC member, you can turn up those. They're fully supported. We have like nutrition and normally vehicle support as well. We now have global insurance, which weirdly is massive. People are massively into. So insurance, sexy.
Meaning if your bike...
Personal injury insurance.
Okay.
If your bike gets damaged, then we can do up to £1,500. I don't know what the dollars. I don't know what the dollars would be.
About $1,800.
There we go. About $1,800 worth of damage that we can cover. You're also covered for accidents or injury when you're riding with the club. We then
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a really good perk. And then we also have members weeks where we give special discounts, special access, and then we have special access to product. So whenever we launch a new product, we'll open the product early so that RCC members can access it in advance. So yeah, there's a whole host, and part of the journey that we're on now is to continue to enhance those benefits almost weekly over the course of the next few months. But yeah, it's a pretty phenomenal amount of value for a very small amount of. Yeah,
I mean, the insurance itself.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
it's bargain.
All right,
sign up.
Good to know. So yeah, we talked a little bit about RCC, the changes over the last few years. Can you share some like sort of just general, I guess, like economic change or what has changed in the cycling apparel industry over the last 5 or 10 years? What are you seeing happen?
I mean, Rapha probably were the only cool cycling brand from 2004 to 2014. And then you just need to see on the ride today, like there's so many brands.
Instagram, yeah.
There are so many brands. And like the map, for any of you who work in marketing or brand you'll quite often do like a map of like your competitive landscape. And we actually did it rather than doing it as like a cross section, we did it as like a linear thing. So from like 2004 through to now, we mapped on when all of the various like brands had started, and it just becomes this like sea of brands like over the last 10 years. Personally, I don't think that's a bad thing, right? I think we as a brand, we should be confident enough and bold enough and brave enough to be able to hold our space and let other brands do their thing too. And I think in our sport, it is, we all know there's a whole different host of people who ride bikes. They want to look different ways. They want to, express themselves in different ways as well. But yeah, it's messier. It's more competitive. It's become far more discount heavy. I think, the kind of the way that we're trading as an industry has to stop, this kind of endless discounting. But yeah, it's a much, much more diluted and kind of messy market than what it has been.
Yeah. And by the way, again, for folks that will be listening, we are in a Trek store in Austin, Texas. There's a lot of Rapha product behind us. There's all sorts of other product on the shelves. So put, your brand alongside others creates a valuable opportunity, right? Yeah.
It's interesting as well. You go we certainly in Europe, you hear a lot, and I think probably in North America as well, like the cycling industry is in decline, or like the cycling industry is in real trouble. And weirdly, my experience, trading is always tough, right? But my experience when I'm out on my bike or I go and I ride all over the world, cycling has never been healthier. Like you see people on bikes now in every corner of the world, and you just did not used to. I told people I worked in cycling 20 years ago and they thought I worked in a bike shop. Like they didn't understand that there was a whole industry that went around it.
Right.
And it's like, and now you say you work in cycling. Oh, what brand do you work for? Or what team do you work for? Or do you know this person? Do you know that person? So we as an industry have got a job to do in terms of a bit of our own PR and like actually making sure that we are building up the sport and building up the brands and building up the companies, because it's our industry. Like we shouldn't be bagging it. Like let's get behind it,
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, a lot of the lifestyle cyclists are kind of in a bubble. So I always, for the last like 10 years, I've been like, I don't know what the state of cycling is because like all my friends are cyclists,
Yeah.
you know? So anyway, I wanted to move along to touch on women's pro cycling and kind of what you're seeing. That is a fascinating category. I think, for obvious reasons, it's exciting to see the growth, but there's also like investment and profit opportunities within the space. So I was just wondering, kind of like, again, can you share with us a state of the union? I mean, what are you seeing as far as increases in Europe, in both consumer, like female participation, and then what are you seeing in the pro peloton for the women?
I mean, certainly female participation and the female side of our business is growing, regularly. It's probably the only bit of double-digit growth that we see. I'm actually going to Shanghai after this trip here in the States, so straight from Dallas to Shanghai, which is one hell of a flight. And the reason I'm going is we have the biggest female community in our Shanghai clubhouse from anywhere else. So it's like 30 to 35% of our consumers are women. It's International Women's Day, so we're going to do a whole week of activity with our female community. So I think women's cycling is in a healthier place than it's ever been at a participation level. I think as a brand, we have more to do to make sure that our product is answering the needs of female cyclists. I think some of our product is fantastic. I think some of it needs work.
Just as far as shape, I mean...
Yeah, shape, sizing, use cases, functionality. Women come in all shapes and sizes. And I think, making sure that we're able to cater to as broad a church of female participants as possible is really important. And also just we have different use cases in terms of like how we need to go to the loo on our bikes and all those kinds of things that some brands do a great job of. We've got a couple of decent products, but I'd like to see us moving that. And actually one of the reasons that I wanted to do the USA deal was the Team USA deals, because they have so many amazing female athletes. Most of their medalists from Paris were female. They're going after 10 medals in LA, and the vast majority of those are with female talent. So you really learn a huge amount about use case and functionality of product through pro athletes. Right. So that's one of the things that we're going to really focus on. And
I wanted to talk about the Kate Courtney She Sends deal. Can you, for maybe folks that don't know about that one, can you talk a little bit?
So Kate is one of our ambassadors. She's been with us for 18 months. I'm going to say it now. I have like a really severe girl crush on Kate. So she's amazing. Brendan Quirk, who's the CEO of USA Cycling, actually messaged me pretty early into my job and said, we've got this incredibly talented female athlete. She's won a medal. She's got all this potential. I think you should speak to her. And I did a video call with her. And I've spoken to a lot of athletes in my career and best athletes in the world. And she was, I would say, in the top 2 or 3 most inspiring athletes I've ever spoken to. Deeply passionate about the sport, deeply passionate about her role in the sport to encourage other young women into the sport. And the Send It Foundation is basically about getting more girls on bikes and getting them doing gnarly things on bikes and making them feel confident and comfortable in that space and that environment. And I'm 100% supportive of it. And actually, the part of the ride that I'm doing in China, I spoke to Kate and said, would you mind if I made it a bit of a She Sends moment? She was like, no, that's incredible. So yeah, it's a phenomenal thing. And she's the real deal through and through. So
and an entrepreneur, right? She launched her own team, and then Rapha was one of the key sponsors.
Yeah, and Allied. I think it's been really nice to see what Allied bikes have done. Like Kate rode for other brands throughout her career and never got like a world champion branded bike. And when that Allied BC40 was made, it was like, and then she was in her like Rapha kit. Yeah. She had a BC40. It just looked banging, and it was like we're finally getting behind women who are performing at the level that the men have been performing at, and recognizing them and making sure that they're being lifted up in the same way that we lift up the guys. So yeah, it's an absolute privilege to work with her.
Very, very cool. And a bit of a tangent. She's a mountain biker.
Yeah.
You all, I guess, since the Walton, investment launched mountain biking products, is that, can you talk about that strategy? I mean, are you guys continuing down that path and kind of doubling down? Or?
Yeah, I think we'll continue down it. Doubling down right now, no. I think it's about simplifying the range and making sure that we can deliver really world-class product for mountain bikers, which we do have in certain spaces. Our shorts, our trousers, knee guards, etc., excellent. But I don't want to expand the range to the point I made at the very beginning. The risk you have is you start going after everything. But yeah, we'll absolutely stay in mountain bike and producing, whether that's quite a small capsule collection of absolutely world-leading product that we will develop with USA, then yeah, we'll definitely be doing that.
Awesome. All right, yeah. And then I wanted to do a little segment on Austin. This was one of the great questions in the questionnaire. Like, what have you learned so far from the Austin market? I mean, what do you see?
Well, I mean, firstly, the reason I'm in Austin is because I've heard so much amazing stuff about Austin. Yeah. Not just from Charlie, who has, I think I met Charlie the week before I got my job for dinner, and he was telling me how great Austin was. I've encountered people pretty much everywhere I've been who talk about the community here, the scene here, what Breakfast Club have been doing, how big the ride, like even just coming to a ride and there being 100 and something people turn up, it's wild.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to come and see it, and I wanted to come and ride within it. So far it's lived up to all the expectations. You can see there's a really incredible scene. I think it's a really diverse scene. It's unusual to see so many different types of like level and different types of kit and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I wish I was here for a bit longer.
Yeah.
And I'm only going to be here for 48 hours. So
Okay.
I'll be back.
You got to come back and we got to ride the hills because I imagine it was mostly a flat ride today. Yeah.
I mean, quite a few people rode up to me and were like, we have better rides than this. We promise we have better rides than this. I was like, it's cool. Don't worry about it. It's kind of windy.
All right,
but
Fran's going to come back. She promises. So yeah. And I was also just curious. We touched a little bit on the Olympics in LA in 28. Are you kind of doing some reconnaissance for American growth strategy? And again, with the Waltons, the tie up with them, like I imagine that's got to be a decent part of the move forward is like.
Do you know what? It's super interesting.
Yeah.
Everyone, when I did the USA cycling deal, lots of people were like, oh, it's because of the Waltons. And I was like, it genuinely wasn't. I think we have a 30% of our business comes from the US.
Okay.
The North American scene is super interesting. The reason I did the USA cycling deal was because I had been a part of the London 2012 Olympic Games, and seeing the impact of a home games on a nation's connectivity to a sport, I was like, it is transformative, like genuinely transformative. And I think with Brendan at the head of USA Cycling, someone who gets it in his bones about what you can do with that. I think with what Jen Dice is doing with People for Bikes, there's just a really interesting opportunity. It's the first time in the Summer Olympic Games history that a Summer Games has been held in a city within a generation. So the 1984 LA Games and the 2028 LA Games, there'll be people who competed in 1984 who can show up and watch in 2028. Right. It's a city of culture, of art, of music, of fashion. Like there's just something
good bike riding too.
Exactly. Yeah. Amazing bike riding. So it just felt like there was like this moment in time was going to happen, and I wanted Rapha to be front and center within it. And I think, like I said, there's a great female contingent. If you really want to get to the real bleeding edge of aerodynamics and performance, the track cyclists are doing some pretty interesting stuff. So we knew we could push into a space we've not pushed into before. So there was all these kind of like boxes that it ticked for me, but at no point
so
was
exciting.
Oh my God, it's so exciting. Yeah.
And the kits look badass.
They
too.
are banging. Yeah, I'm really happy with them. Yeah, really happy with that. And that's the first time because it's like you work in an apparel industry. It's like it takes 18 months for your work to be visible. Yeah. So it's like, oh, cool stuff's coming. And then when that came out, it was like, everyone was like, whoa, cool stuff. I was like, yeah, I told you.
Yeah. Super exciting. And this Olympics was awesome. We actually have Coach Matt over there, who is the U.S. Olympic cross-country ski coach. So he brought home 3 medals for his team. Matt, can you raise your hand real quick? Woo! He joined us today, so I wanted to give him a shout out.
Nice.
I always wrap up interviews with a question about kind of parallels between business, entrepreneurship, leadership, and bike racing.
Yep.
I imagine that's something you've pondered over the over your career. Can you share your thoughts?
The reason I wanted to go and do Belstaff was I'd spent 12 years working with the.
And just so everyone knows, Fran was at a heritage British fashion company for a 4-year turnaround.
Yeah. So INEOS, who own the INEOS Grenadiers, they bought Team Sky. I did a couple of things within INEOS as well as being the CEO of Team Sky. And then the head of INEOS basically asked me to go and run his fashion brand. So I did it for 4 years. The reason I wanted to go and do it, as much as I love men's apparel, was that I wanted to see if all of the things I had learned across the 12 years I'd spent in high performance could be transferable and applicable in a non-sporting environment. And they are, and they were. So I absolutely love the kind of transferability of how do you take a high performance mentality and apply it in a space where high performance isn't necessarily the first thing that people think about when they get out of bed.
Yeah.
So that is actually the thing I love the most, right? I love taking, I'm sure my team gets sick of it, but I love taking all of the kind of bits that we learn about how you keep pushing to get better and putting it into something that you'd not.
All right, what are your secrets? Now I want to know. Yeah.
I mean, the first one is it starts and ends with people. People have to be good at their jobs. People have to know their role, know how they're being measured, have the tools they need to do the job, feel that they're being recognized and rewarded for the work that they're doing, and feel that there's meaning in their work, right? And if human beings have that, irrespective of where they work, whether they're working for the best sports team in the world or whether they're working for the local grocery store, if they have that, they will be able to achieve high performance. And you can engender in people an amazing sense of desire and motivation and ability if you give them those 5 things.
Right.
They're really hard things to give people.
Yeah.
Because as an organization, things change and things move. And one of the unbelievably powerful things at Rapha is why I talk about the mission and the purpose so much is that final one, that doing something that has meaning. We have that in spades, right? So if I know I'm going to give them that, and I can make sure that the organization that I run is run in a way that enables them to know how they're being measured, how they're being rewarded, what they're striving towards, then arguably I'm in the best possible position to create something really special. So that's the main one, like focus on people all the time.
That is a great answer to that question. Very, very thorough. So, thank you so much. I want to open this up for some audience Q&A. Beth Byron, can you come up and ask your question? I have it written down. Yeah.
You can hear me now? I don't know if this. I don't think it's on. I can just talk really loud.
Let's do that.
I'll use my coaching voice. Okay. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. I want to add. I love what you said about people know how they're measured. So I've had a mentor tell me that too, and so thank you for reinforcing that. So my question is. How has your approach to leading others evolved over the years? Yeah, how has your leadership approach evolved over the years, just with the changes from the late '90s to now, with a lot of remote work, virtual work, AI, all that kind of stuff? If there has been changes, if so, could you please share how and any lessons that you have learned along the way?
Okay, thanks, Beth. Okay. So yeah, of course, my leadership style's evolved. I think you do evolve as a human. I worked for an incredibly talismanic and incredibly famous, I guess, sports leader in Dave Brailsford. And I learned a huge amount working for, around, and with him. But I knew as I evolved, I wanted to lead in a different way. So the main evolution has been from, I really wanted to work from a place of empathy and work from a place of like servant leadership, as opposed to kind of the hero leadership that you see a lot, particularly in male leaders. So that's been something I've really tried to develop. It's actually been really hard at Rapha because I've come in and everyone's like, oh, Fran's here. She's going to save the world. And I'm like, no, I'm not. So it's definitely, for me, it's about how do I keep doing those 5 things? How do I keep making sure that I'm the one supporting from behind and giving people the chance to succeed and not letting myself get in the way of it, or indeed letting myself tell people how to do things, because I've evolved so much in my career that I'm like, I know how to do this. So with young people, you really do have to give them the chance to fail. And even when they're about to fail, let them do it. So that evolution has been something I've really worked on over certainly the last 3 or 4 years. You're welcome.
So, folks in the audience, if you have questions, let us know. I'm going to rattle one off. This was from Ryan Fenton, who's not here, a big runner. Can you share insights on how your team tackled the logistics of the INEOS 159 marathon attempt? Staffing, fueling, pacers, broadcast coordination. What was the most challenging? And any stories from the day that most people don't know?
Wow. I mean, so for those of you who don't know, the Eliud Kipchoge 159 challenge was basically in 2017, Nike had tried to break 2 with their Breaking 2 challenge, 3 athletes, 2.5 years, didn't manage it. They did it in Monza around a racetrack, and they missed with 1 athlete, a guy called Eliud Kipchoge, greatest marathon runner in the world. They missed the 2-hour marathon barrier by 25 seconds. So Jim Ratcliffe, who owns INEOS, had signed Eliud Kipchoge and he'd signed London Marathon Events. And when he bought Team Sky, he said to Dave Brailsford and I, could you help us with this challenge? Because we've signed this athlete and we've signed this events company. This was in April 2019. And we were like, I mean, sure, but this sounds mental. And we were like, when do you want to do it? And I thought he was going to say like 2023. And he was like, oh, in October. I was like, what? So basically, we went on this journey to try and break the 2-hour marathon barrier, but it meant that we had to find the course, find the athletes, find the pacers, find everything, like absolutely everything. So the approach that we took basically, and this was Dave Brailsford's performance strategy, was you're not going to make him faster in 6 months. Can't make an athlete of his caliber faster in 6 months. And we knew from Breaking 2 that the issue had been in the execution. So he'd missed a feed, for example. He didn't get he didn't have great aerodynamics. He had a lot of messy air around him. The car that they were using to pace him didn't work very well. It was a Tesla. It was. And so there were all of these and everyone, it's a much maligned expression, the marginal gains thing that we did at Team Sky, but we just applied marginal gains. We were like, how can we go after this performance? So we did, we discovered that we took a guy called Robbie Ketchell, who's an aerodynamicist in cycling, and he'd been looking at how the running formations had worked over the history of running. And I'm sure most of you be familiar with that V and the runner runs there. He was like, that actually doesn't make any sense because it creates a lot of wobbly air. So he went into the wind tunnel with little mini Elliotts, and he discovered that if you put a V in front of Elliot and then had two people in front of him, so an inverted K, it would create almost silent air around Elliot. And the runners were like, this is mental, it's not going to work. Whereas Eliud Kipchoge was like, let's try it. So we've got this amazing drone footage of him walking it with the paces and then jogging it with the paces and then running it with the paces. But obviously the problem with that is you need 7 pacers and not many guys or girls can run at his pace. Yeah. So we needed the best 5K and 10K runners in the world, and we needed 42 of them. So we literally had to fly in all of these runners, train them. So end of August 2019, we flew them all into Vienna. We closed all the roads along the course and we trained them how to do, and the switch out was super high risk. Because it's like you've got the guys running in this K, they're running at 250 pace. So they're running fast as hell. Yeah, crazy fast. And then they've got to peel out, and then other guys have got to peel in. And there's guys who are like literally 1.5 feet away from Elliot, and their stride pattern is really, really long. So the risk of him tripping or falling or anything else was massive. So he did that. Little things like we weighed his drinks. So we had a guy, if you watch any of the footage, there's a guy on a bike riding next to him. He's picking up the bottles. They were then taking those bottles, weighing them, establishing how much food or fuel he'd had, and then giving him the next bottle to ensure that he got enough fluids into him and enough nutrition into him. So we were like completely obsessed by it. It was this is a whole different podcast. It was one of the best things I have ever done in my life. It was
6-month turnaround, right?
Yeah, well, by the time we took on the project, it was the end of April. So it was actually slightly less than that. Right. And it was full gas. Like we were going after everything. And like we'd had to get into an Audi E-Class and work out how to adjust the mileage. So we put a dial over the black box so you could adjust it by 0.1 of a kilometer per hour up and down. It was bonkers. And also Jim was like, gave us a pretty cool budget to go after it. And I remember once phoning and being like, so we've established that the road that goes round the roundabout, it's got a very slight off camber, like a 0.5% off camber, and it's making the runners' heels hurt as they go round. So what we want to do is try and lift it up, but we're going to lift it by 0.5 as well. So you almost create a banking. And he was like, right. And I said, I've spoken to like Vienna, they're cool with it. It's around this like really old cafe, like super famous cafe. And they're like, don't mess around with the cafe, but you can do what you want to the road. And I was like, cool. And I was like, it's going to cost us quite a lot of money to relay the road. He was like, how much? And I told him, and he was like, get it done. So we literally a week before the event, we relayed the entire road. And I was like, I had like people out like rolling tarmac.
This is part of the job.
I was like, this is amazing. Yeah. Like, this is so cool. So yeah, it was the most phenomenal project in the world to work on. And when he won, it was like, oh my God, like 1:59.42. We didn't just get the 25, we smashed it out of the park.
And you've shared that was up there with a Tour de France win.
Geraint Thomas winning the Tour, Eliud Kipchoge breaking the 2-marathon barrier. Like, give me goosebumps even sat here talking about it. Yeah, two of my proudest moments. Yeah, it was amazing. Amazing. So
cool. We have one from Mia Cheeseman. How has Rapha used research to examine how women socialize on the bike, shop, and their needs from product like women's bibs?
Probably haven't done enough, actually. And interestingly, I was speaking to somebody on the ride today, I don't think she's here now, a lady called Michelle, who specializes in kind of exploring the social dynamics around like communities. And I think that sort of like anthropological look at how we interact with our bikes and how cycling impacts our lives. And I think for women particularly, I think it'd be a fascinating bit of research to do. So I would say we probably don't do enough of it. We should do more.
I think last one, unless the audience wants to chime in, from Neil Ketkar, what do you believe people consistently misunderstand about high-performing athletes?
Oh. That they find it easier than us. You know, like I've never met an athlete who doesn't find it exceptionally hard and doesn't work exceptionally hard. I think there's that amazing graduation speech that Roger Federer does where he says the thing that he finds most disrespectful is when people say it looks effortless. He's like, it's not effortless. It's just I've worked this hard to make it look like this.
Right.
And I think that, you know, quite often it's like people just think they're that good, they're born that good, and they have the talent, but the amount of work it takes them is the same as the amount of work it takes us. They're still human beings.
Right. Yeah. Last chance. All right, we got two. Thank you. We got Taker. Yes. Mel, come on up.
Hey, I'm Matt.
Hi, Matt.
Check. I'm Matt, and I drove all the way down here from Dallas.
Thanks,
Round
Matt.
of applause for Matt.
Crazy. Actually, the word you just used kind of sparked a question. Misunderstand about athletes. Fran, what do folks misunderstand about the brand Rapha?
Oh, wow.
What would you like to say? You don't get it, right?
Oh, that's a really tough question. What do people misunderstand about the brand?
You hear the word elitism.
Do you know what? It's the reason I'm struggling to answer it is that if you'd have asked me 18 months ago before I had traveled around the world, I probably would have said like elitist or like London centric or a bit snobby or whatever, or a bit old fashioned. But I think having seen the brand and how it shows up all over the world, it's like, and maybe that is the misunderstanding, right? Like people don't realize how huge a global footprint we have, how huge a global community have, how diverse those communities are, and how different they are. And I think that's one of the most amazing things about community. There's no one community that's the same. So you go and spend time with the Austin community, it'll be different to the Dallas community, that'll be different to the Houston community. And you amplify that across the world. And you just see this unbelievable expression of Rapha that is truly motivating. Like I'm so pleased I spent my first 6 months in the brand traveling around the world because I got to see what it means to people in Tokyo, in Seoul, in Australia. And it's like, and it means something slightly different and it's so powerful. So I think maybe what people misunderstand is that it's a cycling clothing brand. It's not, it's a movement. It's not a cycling clothing brand. Like that's a sort of byproduct.
We talked about the 2028 transformative, that you want from Team USA. I am a product of the 1984 Olympics. Team USA, all those guys, that probably ages me, right? No, but watching the Olympics when I was 12 years old got me really excited about cycling. When everybody else was playing football and basketball and baseball and all that in junior high, and I wanted to be different, I started riding a bicycle. And here I am at, do the math, still riding a bike as fast as I can.
Yeah. It's a powerful thing. And there's like inspiration to participation. That was the entire genesis of Team Sky. Like, can we inspire people to ride bikes,
So obviously community is a huge part of your strategy going forward, and you've gotten to travel all over the world now. We are pretty proud of our community in Austin, right? But I'm so interested to know which communities around the world have you been like, wow, I did not expect this. This is so incredible. Like, tell us some of your favorite spots, favorite communities.
The Sydney team, the Sydney clubhouse and the Sydney team are smashing it. Like the Sydney community is wild, like massive rides, really diverse groups. Like they do all different levels of riding. You can go and do like a super hard hills ride or a 101 ride where there are people who've just learned to clip in or they're still in their trainers. So that community is incredible. The Seoul community was pretty cool. Like they all like still like caliper brakes and they're like, it's still in like sport wool. And it's like, this is like rad. What is this? But it was amazing. Taipei, like we have a guy in Taipei called Ray who's been basically leading the charge for the RCC down there. And they're like a bunch of really cool, really invested Rapha guys and girls, but they're young, they're showing up, they're riding all the time, they ride hard, they ride fast. They're a really cool group. I'm going to name them all now. I'm going to go through all of them. They're all so different. But yeah, I think they'd probably be the three that really stand out to me. Yeah.
Also, just to plug, if you ask a question, we're giving out Strava swag.
All right, then we got one. We got one now.
Yeah. Here we go.
Strava swag. Question for you. So you've got a very diverse background, but I'm curious, as a leader, who do you look up to now? Like, who are the role models that you look for inspiration and think about and read about and all those good things?
Wow, what a great question. So I'm a like ferocious reader and listener of all things leadership, excellence and leadership. I've just actually bought a book called The Way of Excellence, which I'm absolutely loving that book. And I love the evolution of excellence over the course of the last 10 years, where it's like you kind of the softening of the edges of it, and this idea that excellence and joy can coexist and must coexist, actually, that if you really want to engender excellence in people, there has to be a joyful process in that. So yeah, I'm sort of reading all the time. In terms of leaders that I respect, that is a really tricky one. Mainly people you probably wouldn't know about, like Jeremy Darroch, who is the CEO of Sky. He was an incredibly inspiring leader. I love Michelle Obama. I think the way that she carries herself and holds herself is incredibly impressive. Yeah, it's probably, and actually, you know, people like Kate Courtney, you know, like people who are using their platform to do special, amazing things, but being incredibly authentic to who they are. I think that's been one of the things for me is through my journey is I've been very lucky, both in the way I've been raised and the way that I've been exposed to life. I've been allowed to be myself the whole way through, a little bit sweary, talk very fast. But yeah, I've been allowed to be me, you know, and I think this idea of authentic leadership has become a fashionable thing. But I've always been very, very able to be myself. And I think that's been my superpower. So anyone who I find who I'm like, oh, wow, you're authentically and truly yourself and you're doing an amazing job. So people like Kate, Lael Wilcox, people like that you kind of like, wow, you're amazing.
Well, I think that's a great note to end on. I've got a couple quick housekeeping items. As far as hill climbers go, we ride every Tuesday morning at 6:45 a.m. from the Meteor. You can expect some punchy hills, and it's short. We get you back by 8:30 for work. We are planning our second sort of flagship event for South by Southwest. Our main featured guest is Lucas Burgoyne, who's the Crit National Champ. That will be March 13th. And we've got other panelists. VC, Nate Williams, is flying in from the Bay Area. And Devin from Kinetic, a ketone brand, is flying in from DC. So we've got some QR codes circulating. If you want tickets, we can help you get them this evening. And then, just want to give Fran a big thank you. Round of applause, please.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah.